Hey guys, so the speaker is out of the cab, and since the dust cover has got no tears or any apparent signs of damage, I'm assuming the cone's okay. Everything looks to be pretty cool, so I didn't see any reason to go taking all that off. I just cleaned all the dust off the cover. So, field coil, obviously, and highlighting some more discrepancies with the circuit diagram that I happen to have, so I'll go into. But item of interest number one is this little guy right here. So these two terminals here are for the field coil, and these are two for the voice coil. So there's no reference to this obviously in the circuit diagram. In terms of form factor, it looks like the 1800 ohm resistor that's in the pi filter in the power supply. And it's got 2700 written on it. So I will check it later, but I can't check it right now because it's actually bridged out. So the ground to the coil comes here and the supply comes here. And then the center terminal here is the goes off to the other side of the voice coil. So it looks like one side comes in here, either jumpered across or through this resistor and then up to one side of the coil, and then the other side is here. So I'm not sure what that's for, but as I say, it gets a little bit more weird than that, because I would expect this to be a field coil speaker, but on the old circuit diagram, I can show it to you here, but each of the coils are marked with an ohmic value in the component list. And so this here is 76, which is the speaker coil at 4 ohms. These two coils here on the secondary of the audio output, feedback coils for the tone circuits and whatever, and here's our primary right here, and here is the secondary driving the speaker. And it looks like that you have the regular filter setup here with the two electrolytics, and this is a resistor in between them, not a coil, which looks exactly like the device sitting on the speaker here, and I measured it and it's 1800 ohms as it should be. And then we have the supply coming from before the filter, and it goes off and it goes up through the primary of the audio output transformer, through a cap, back to deck. So there's nothing on here that shows me a field coil being used as a choke in the power supply. So yeah, there's definitely discrepancies between what I got and what's on this drawing. Not the least, of course, of which is the primary to mains transformer doesn't show multi-taps on it, whereas there's loads of taps on the one I got. So yeah, I'll probably end up doing some redrawing here to make sure I capture all the discrepancies. But yeah, I guess this is the fun when you got almost no documentation. So, what I've kind of decided to do is I'm going to have to do some, I think, jig building, because I need to fit the various sub-assemblies onto the subframe to be able to test it out of the cabinet. I'm therefore going to need to rig up some way of fixing an on-off switch with a fuse. So again, I'll probably rig up some sort of bracketry to go on the subframe for that as a temporary. And of course I need to rig up, if I can, some sort of jig between the receiver itself here. So I need to rig up a jig with this guy that will fix the dial mechanism, which sits here just above these two black pulleys, somehow onto the chassis. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, to be honest. Because the only holes that I could bolt a jig to seem to be in places that I would have real trouble undoing once the whole thing is in the radio. So yes, that's still a work in progress, that one. But I got some valves. So I got a new old stock AZ1, and this is about as new. I don't know where this thing was stored, but this box is bright and shiny and newer. It's just kind of like it is really new. But usually new old stock, because it's been sitting somewhere, the packing rarely looks to be in such brand new shop condition as this one. And yep, it's definitely new. The contacts are completely virgin, untouched, and I think you can see it's a Philips AZ1 made in Holland. So I have to say, these are the kind of valves that I really like, the big ones, the octal ones, or these type, although this base didn't last very long. I seem to remember reading up that these were so problematic that they ended up converting pretty much most of their sets to octal base. So there's probably an adapter that you can get that converts. I don't know, we'll have to have a look. Anyway, as I say, these are the kind of tubes that I enjoy working with the most because they look nicest. And I got a new old stock EM4 Magic Eye. And as you can see, this box is more like the sort of box you get when you get a new old stock, because it's been sitting around somewhere for however many years. Yeah. So again, contacts nice and clean. Ultron EM4. So I might put a casing around it here. I don't know, we'll see. Because I have a rectifier, I have enough to get started with testing the mains transformer and seeing if we can get some B+ and start reforming those caps in the AF section and go from there. So I have to basically rig up the test environment. In fact, I found another AZ1 for a pretty good price on the net, so it's used but working, so at least I have a spare if I need one. The original mains cord looked quite good, flexible and everything, so I was going to use it until I stripped it back. So if I can show you this, it's basically the same rubber coating, and you can just break it off and you get right down to the wire. So got to replace the mains cord. So the other end of the mains cord looks quite unusual, and so I wanted to keep this. But the way this thing goes together, the wires solder on each side here, and they're just like little flexible tangs. Not a lot of pressure on here at all. So when you push them over the pins here, not a lot of force. Not sure I want to go with this. If I want to just replace the whole thing with something a little more positive, if you know what I mean, in terms of connection. Not sure how this jives with modern health and safety rules, but I got it in there. So, yep, we'll keep this plug on this end. So So here's what I've come up with as a temporary rig for powering this thing up and testing it out of the cab, since the on-off switch is actually fitted to the side of the cab. So I fitted a switch and a line fuse on a little bracket here, which I will hot glue onto the base here just for testing. And then later, he said optimistically, when everything is going okay, I will remove this, cut it right here so I get rid of the switch but keep the fuse, and then I'll screw the fuse to the inside of the cab, somewhere close to the existing on-off switch. And yeah, hopefully that'll work. So, unfortunately I didn't have a dual pole on-off switch, I only have single pole. So I'll just have to join up the neutrals and switch to live. Okay, so here's the setup for testing, the old transformer at least, and hopefully a lot more. So bracket temporarily hot glued onto the base. New reproduction mains power cord. Line fuse fitted. I wanted to put a 1 amp, but I didn't. I only had a 2, so there's a 2 amp in there. It should be okay. On-off switch, and I've got my AC voltmeter across the main secondary to see if we're getting volts out. Well, since everything ohmed out okay, hopefully we will. But I'll take it very gently, since probably this guy hasn't had AC to it for quite a while. And so the secondary output from the transformer, I've just hooked them up to like a contact strip temporarily to make sure they don't go shorting out, and also make it easier to measure if I've got the heater voltage here when we get going. Okay, we're fired up on the Variac, sitting at about 100 volts right now. And the output from the secondary is 235. Seems kind of high, since I gotta go to 245 as the mains input. So I guess we'll just keep going here and see. But nothing went bang, nothing is buzzing. And so that's a pretty good sign, since this thing hasn't been juiced for quite a while. I'll crank it up to 150. Okay, now I'm up to 354. I mean, I'll see how high we get up to, and then I'll check the characteristics of an AZ1 to see if we're okay or not. Yeah, we're probably good, because the heater winding here is 2.3 volts, and I need to get to 4. And so I'm only at 150 volts AC in. And let's crank it up. Okay, so now we're at 200 volts AC in. We're just around the 3 volts here now. So that's looking good. Let's see what my heater voltage is. 5.2, that looks good, because I got about another 50 volts to go. Oh, let's go all the way, dude. 6.4 on the heater. And that's around 4, oscillating between 3.9 and 4.1. So, initial signs are that the mains transformer is a good one. Of course, since I have no data on what that high voltage secondary should be, I'm kind of stuck with it, but if everything else is okay, then I'm assuming this is okay as well. So assuming that's all good, next step would be to install the AF section, fit the rectifier, and then crank it up slowly. Make sure those reservoir caps reform, and go from there. Okay, right, all bolted back together. So transformer, rectifier wired into the AF section, AF wired into the HF section, and yeah. This wiring is okay. I'm satisfied with this because I'm able to trace it out okay. Even without a circuit diagram, it's fairly straightforward. For these ones over here, the top three are good because the top one is ground or chassis, the next two are the heater filament supply to the tube over here. But these other four I gotta check. They're done the same as the ones I took off, at least I'm pretty certain that they are, based on all the photographs and everything. But I want to see if I can logically follow them through in the circuit so that I know that it makes sense, because for instance these two red wires are the same. They come from the same point over here, and I just want to make sure that that's correct, that I didn't screw up anywhere. And yeah, so obviously one of these here must be the B plus coming over, and who knows what else. Okay, so that's kind of that done. I think I said when I first picked it up that it didn't weigh a lot. I'm not sure what I was smoking that day, but this thing weighs a ton right now. Man, yeah. So next I gotta do like the old Molex thing here to connect up to the speaker. Right, I think it's all wired up at this point, such that I can start testing it outside of the cab. I mean, I will shorten all this lead and put the Molex right up at the connector here. But for now, it's convenient to be able to put it further away from the chassis. So next up will be a fair amount of testing and continuity and everything else to make sure I'm screwed up. It's quite late at night now, so not appropriate for John to be messing with B pluses and such like. So next step we'll get to firing it up and see what happens.